is working. I'm just doing a live stream from my cell phone. Fairly impromptu. I got major coffee cup in there. Let's see. Has not shown up on my computer yet. There we go. Yeah. All right. So looks like I'm fully live now. Hopefully you can hear me. If you can hear everything, just go ahead and type it into the comments there. I'm looking here on my cell phone, which is viewing. I've got it over here on my computer. Coming to you from my brand new composing desk, which I have been hard at work at for the past week or so, prepping the parts for Symphony 3. I am not even through all the woodwind parts yet. Okay, sounds good. So, if you missed the last video, we are going to be doing a big recording project, virtual recording project for Symphony 3, Chisos Dawn. Symphony 3 right here. It is the single largest symphony ever written for wind band. Not quite the longest. It's just under being the longest symphony ever, but it is by far the largest. The longest is Maslenka's Ninth Symphony at 75 minutes, though a good chunk of that is narration. My symphony is 70, so just a hair under Maslenka 9, but I mean, you're at that point you're really kind of starting to split hairs. But I thought I would actually tell the story because Symphony 3 is absolutely programmatic. It tells a very real story, very real event. And if you've ever watched the video or seen me talk about it, it's subtitled Chisos Dawn. And if you don't know, the Chisos Mountains are a small mountain range here in Texas. They are completely enclosed within Big Bend National Park. And they contain the second highest peak in Texas. That's Mount Emory. And it is an absolutely gorgeous part of the country. I've been there several times. And I mostly go for bird watching. And so the story goes, in 2015, I had just quit my job being an English teacher. I had really gotten burnt out that year. I did not know what I was going to do. All I knew is I had saved up a bunch of money that year and I wanted to take a big giant road trip. And I wanted to go all through the American West. So from West Texas up to California, and I was going to go make all the way up to like Washington and then like to Yellowstone and just keep going around. And the full trip never happened, but there are circumstances for that, and I'll get to later. But I made it to the Chisos Mountains, Big Bend, and this would be my third time going there. And as a bird watcher, you go to the Chisos Mountains looking for a very specific bird. It's called the Colima warbler. It's a tiny bird. It's about this big, weighs maybe a couple ounces. That's it. And it's in the United States. It's only found in very high altitudes of the Chisos Mountains. And so I wanted to go see that bird. In order to do that, you've got to do what's called the Death March. The Death March is somewhere between 9 and 11 miles round trip up and down the mountain. There's no roads to get up there. You have to hike it. So I had done that once before, a year or 2 years earlier, and I did it on a day when it was about 105, 110 degrees outside. For those of you who are not familiar with our stupid measuring system, that's about 40, 45 degrees Celsius. So I did that, and I completely nearly killed myself that time. And so I thought I'd have the bright idea of doing it again. And so I did. So here's basically the story as it goes, and I'm going to correspond it with the various sections of the symphony. So as I'm driving in to Big Bend, there's just this huge storm front coming through, and it's completely flat country except for in the distance you've got the mountains just popping up. They're what we call sky islands. Basically, um, it's a mountain against a flat terrain. Um, Something, if you envision Mount Kilimanjaro in East Africa, that's a sky island. And the island part refers to the ecosystem that exists at the top of the mountain that is just completely different from what's down below. It's essentially almost like an island poking up out of the plains. So I'm driving in, and it's on, I can't even remember which highway it is. It's the highway between Del Rio and Alpine, out in far, far west Texas. And as I'm driving in, you just see these storms and these massive cloud formations as you're coming across essentially a very, very flat terrain. And you just see these giant mountains, and behind them are the giant storm clouds. And this is the first section of the symphony, the storm at sunset. Because it's as I'm getting there, it's right as the sun is starting to go down. And it's just this grand, you know, epic background. It's just pure drama that nature unfolds. And so I'm just driving into it, watching the drama just creep up and creep up. And the storm kind of, peters out, and right as I get into Big Bend, into the national park. And as I get there, it's getting dark. And in order to get to the campground that I was going to stay at, you have to drive up into the mountains, into what's called the Chisos Basin. And it's a long, winding road, and there's signs that say look out for bears, because it's the only place in Texas where there are bears. So this is now the second section, the ascent in the dark. No, not. It's into the mountains, and so it's partly this dark setting, but also just the grandeur, the hugosity of the mountains as you just ascend and ascend and ascend. And this is one of the biggest, grandest sections in the piece, with just big ascending scales. And then the next part is the darkness. Because as you get up there, you are in one of the very few dark skies areas in the United States that's left. The darkness of night is section 3. And you just get up there, and if you have no stars coming through, just the clouds, it's dark. And so this is just this deep section of the symphony with rumbling subcontrabassoon, subcontrabass clarinet, contrabassoon, great bassoon, double basses and cellos, and tuned gongs. And it's just this deep, and it's just the pure blackness that's around you. And this is where I'm starting to set up my camp. And at the end of this section, there's just these long solos, and it's just me thinking about things. Basically, I'm kind of the soloist there. Very much a personal symphony where I'm thinking about all sorts of this. It is very introspective. For being as large as it is an entirely introspective piece. But the clouds break. And because this is a dark sky area, once the clouds break at night, the stars open up. And the section 4 is called The Glory of the Unfettered Night Sky. Whereas if you look up, there you can see the entirety of the Milky Way. And it's just this glorious tapestry of stars and stellar clouds and nebula, and you can just see it. And for someone who has lived under, light pollution for pretty much all my life, everybody has really, unless you're out way in the deep country, it is just this almost spiritual sight to see what the night sky really looks like. And this section is just, it's full of twinkles and flutes and all sorts of light percussion, glockenspiel and celeste and crotales. And I can't remember if the harps come in here or not. Yes, harps come in here. And so it's just this very light section. But it is just, and then all, underneath all of it is just this long, well, it's a leitmotif, actually. It's just absolutely beautiful section. And, as this progresses, I'm sitting out in the Chisos Basin in the campground and just looking up, and you start falling asleep and you start thinking about things. And what is the next section? Is the next section the Piece of Solitude, the track 5. And so this is a very, very introspective section. It's me basically pondering why I'm out there. I had taken this trip to get away from that really awful teaching job I had. I had no clue what I was going to do after this. All I knew is I wanted to get away. I just said, I'd got to go find myself. I got to do something. And, looking back at it 6 years later, I think I succeeded in that through the creation of the Symphony, but I didn't know that at the time. So this, the Piece of Solitude is just, very deep introspective, pondering the meaning of life. And then the next section is Dreams Under the Stars, and basically kind of a sleep sequence where I get a little bit of sleep that night. I did not sleep much at all during that. And these sections often are broken up with long, just solo passages for a single player, which will be really interesting when we record them. Just see what the players are able to do with that. But yeah, the next section is Dreams Under the Stars, and this is very, very impressionistic, very, very dreamlike, lots of whole tone scales, and this is very light. It's, it's sleep. But of course, as I said, as I'm driving into the mountains, there was of course the storm. Well, the storm comes back in the middle of the night, probably about 1 o'clock in the morning or so, and I'm there in my tent, and it comes back with a vengeance. And the actual storm that you go through, up there, you're closer to the clouds because I was probably 4,000 feet up elevation wise, which in Texas is a lot. In other places, Colorado, that's nothing, but in Texas, being 4,000 feet in elevation is really pretty high up. And so the storm comes back, and I have to abandon my tent. I have to get into my car, and I am up there, and I am watching the lightning crash around the mountains. The mountains are completely surrounding me because I'm in a low dip in there. And so you could see the lightning flash, and you could see the silhouette of the mountain between you and the lightning. And so all around, you've got this light show going, and the rain is driving. And this is one of the most brutal and loud sections of the piece because everything was loud at that point. But eventually the storm passes, and this is again a real storm. I have pictures of me on the trip, and it lingers out throughout most of the early morning. Probably stops raining officially by about 5 or so. At that point, though, I am wide awake. I'm not going back to sleep, and I start listening. As the rain subsides, the birds start to call. And up there are lots of different species of nocturnal birds. Characteristically, you will hear birds like the common poor-will, the Mexican whippoorwill. Those are types of nightjars, also called goatsuckers, caprimulgids, if you will, related to nighthawks. You'll also hear the elf owl. Occasionally, you'll hear it. The western screech owl, and I heard all of those on in that night. And the next whole section is going from this violent storm to listening to these little birds call back and forth to one another. And it's just this. I love the contrast of just the the epicness of the storm to the listening to a single bird. And while I'm listening to these birds, I'm actually starting to hike the mountain. I start to hike at 3:30 in the morning. Pitch black. It's still raining a little bit, but I know that if I want to make it up to the top of the mountain by dawn, I've got to start at 3:30 because it is a long hike and dawn comes early. So I get out of my car after the rain. I drive up a little bit so I don't have to, there's a little bit of elevation between the campground and where the trail starts. So I drive up to the trailhead and I start hiking. And I'm the only one out there. This is a country that is known for bears and mountain lions. So I know that those animals are out there. There's also javelinas, skunks, all sorts of wildlife out there, and I'm constantly watching for it. I'm not too worried, but I know they're there. So I start the hike, and it's slow going. It's humid, but it's still pretty cool. It's a huge contrast to what I had done the year or two previous, where, like I said, it was 105, and I started the hike at like 7 in the morning, not thinking that it would take me until 4 in the afternoon to get back down. So I'm very much playing on the time. So walking up and up the mountain. The next section is the ascent in the dark, and this is where you can hear the footsteps, just the slow pace. Again, it's about a 9-mile hike to get there, just to see this tiny little bird. And I get up there. I reach the crest, and I probably reach the crest about 6:30 in the morning, exhausted at this point because I didn't really sleep at night. But what I see when I get over is the clouds have descended, and there's this layer, this blanket of fog over the hidden valley over the ridge. And as I get to that ridge, I'm up pretty high and I can look back down, and it is just this primeval scene of fog over just a dense oak and pine forest, which in the middle of a desert is just this incredible contrast. You've gotten so high in elevation that you've gone from a cactus desert to these huge oak and pine forests. And so I'm looking out, and it is like I've entered into a completely different world. Primeval, just it's like something out of a science fiction movie, except you're really there. And all around me, the birds are starting to wake up. The night birds, the night jars, the owls, they're going to sleep. And I start to hear the other birds. And these are the birds that I had come up there trying to find. And so I'm hearing white-throated swifts. I'm hearing canyon wrens and canyon towhees. And I start to hear that little Kalima warbler. And they're all around, and you can just barely hear their call. And so in this section, you're going to hear bird playback, the actual calls of these birds. It's what we call the dawn chorus. The dawn chorus is that moment when the birds start waking up, they start calling to one another, and it's just it's a symphony of nature in itself. So I actually in this section let the birds do the work, and the band is just accompanying the dawn chorus. It's a really, really lovely effect. And then dawn starts to happen because it's still fairly dark outside. You can just start to see the rays of the sun peek over the mountains, and it's starting to get lighter and lighter. And this is the first point of the symphony. This is really toward the very end of the symphony that you're going to hear the trumpets. The trumpets represent the dawn. And there are 20 trumpets placed all around the ensemble. And the first ones you're going to hear are the two alto trumpets. They're actually placed way up high in the balcony. So you'll hear two alto trumpets. Then a little bit later, you'll hear the C trumpets. They're in the back of the auditorium, behind the audience. And as the sun rises higher and higher, you get more and more rays. And finally, all 20 trumpets are playing, and then the dawn happens. And it is just an absolute magical point in the hike where I'm there and I'm by myself, and I'm just watching nature itself wake up. And it's just, for me, it's one of the most profound experiences I've ever had. And it did not occur to me at that point that this is a symphony that I am literally witnessing. It took another 3 years for me to come to the realization that that experience, hiking the Chisos Trail at dawn, is itself a symphony. And so I sat down to write this experience. Most people would write it as a story, but I set it to music. Jared says, I think for the video accompanying the virtual symphony, you need to rewalk the trail. That's kind of what I'm thinking I may do, is to rewalk the trail. I want to get back out to the Chisos Mountains. It is a long, long drive from where I am. And of course, the past year, 2 years with COVID around, it's been difficult to do that. Maybe what I'd love to do is team up with some actual videographers who know that area well, and maybe do some collaboration with them. Finding someone who really wants to do the death march at 3:30 in the morning, trying to recreate the actual weather scenario, that's gonna be hard. Possible, yes, but so it after 3 years of me just having this image in my head, I put it to music, and so now I'm going to be sharing it with probably 100 musicians, really, and we're going to sit down and we're going to record this piece, and hopefully the result is going to be something even bigger and grander than what we did with Symphony 2. It is a massive undertaking, and like I said, it's going to take about 100 people to do it. I know there will be some people who will be doubling up on parts and whatnot, but I'd actually like to spread it out a little bit more, because Symphony 2 requires about 84 people. We did it with 59, and that was with a whole bunch of people doubling. Recording that video late at night might be a little hard. You can get cameras that have night record features on them, so I actually don't think it's going to be that difficult, but I'd really like to find someone who is really more of a videographer to help out with something like that. But that is really the story of Chisos Dawn. It is so. A few more things on it. When I conceived of it, it is very much akin to Strauss's Alpine Symphony. However, it is it is almost a mirror image of Alpine. Alpine is the story of going up and coming down the mountain. This is basically just going up. I don't come back down in this. Um, Alpine is from dawn to dusk. This is from dusk to dawn. So it's very much inverted. In fact, one of the main leitmotifs is taken from the Alpine Symphony. Now, I feel I am justified in taking this because Strauss himself stole that motif from Beethoven 5. So, I mean, I'm in fairly good company there. So it's a play on a motif from Beethoven 5, which gets reused in Alpine Symphony, which I use in Chisos Dawn. You know, good composers borrow, or good composers steal, whatever. But that is. But yeah, so it's very much an anti-Alpine. But if you guys have any questions, let me know. It's like I said, I'm just kind of rambling here, telling a story. I should get back some point this evening to prep some more parts. I would love to be able to finish the woodwinds in the next day or so. Again, if you want to join us, please do so. We are needing all sorts of players. One thing is, it is very much professional level players we're looking for, because this is not an easy piece. This is an extremely difficult piece. Oh, hello, Wesley. I am new to your live chat, but find channel resources very helpful. Had no idea you went live. Yeah, I went live about 30 minutes ago. I'm just telling the story right now of my Symphony 3, which we are in the process of starting the recording of. I am still prepping the parts. That is probably going to take me another week or so to get everything prepped. It is a huge amount of pages that I have to go through to get all of the parts prepped. I will probably do a video at some point showing the entire prepped score, or the prepped parts. And then the next step is create the click tracks. There's going to be 23 separate tracks for this. Not everybody plays on everything, so it'll make it a little simpler, and then we start the recording process. Probably have recording going maybe by the end of the month, this month. If you are interested in joining the project, there's a link down in the description to our Discord server. There we are discussing the logistics of doing it. We got a lot of people joined up. Almost all of the clarinet spots are full, but I have spots available for pretty much every other instrument. If you want to join, let me know. If you can only record one or two passages, that's fine. We can split up stuff like that easily. Yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions? I know there's only a few people watching. But yeah, I'll use this video kind of as a reference to people joining in the Symphony project, and to kind of just tell them, what the story of the piece is, because they'll see weird things in there like the glory of the unfettered night sky. It's like, what the hell does that mean? Oh yeah, okay, yeah. It's witnessing a true dark sky scene where you can actually see the stars. Oh. Are you gonna hop into the Discord VC when the prep to prep parts later? I don't know. I might. We'll see. I may just want to sit here, prep parts, and watch stuff on Netflix. So who knows? But anyway, if nobody else has any more questions, we'll go ahead and call it a stream for now. And I'm going to get back to preparing some parts. And hopefully I'll be able to finish all the flute parts by the end of the evening. So thanks guys for watching. I appreciate everybody who's joined. If you want to join, please let me know. And until next time.